You're just a sad, lonely little boy who's wearing a... You're just a sad, lonely boy who always loses at FIFA. Sorry. I was just helping him with the performance. Sorry.
What if I told you that the biggest threats to the Straw Hats isn't Crocodile or Smoker or even the Grand Line? It's Netflix. One Piece live action season 2 drops on March 10th. The most recent trailer looks bigger than the ones we've seen before.
A pirate is someone who has adventures.
What?
Is it Going Merry?
What?
The Going Merry.
Wait, who?
The Going Merry.
X, nigga, shut up!
Both Chopper and the Grand Line are here. The world is expanding exactly the way fans hoped it would. But there is a shadow hanging over it. Because Netflix has a reputation, and not a good one, for cancelling ambitious shows just as they start getting good. RIP American Vandal. You were underrated.
But then again, you never really know, dude.
What do you mean?
Like, think about it, dude. He's a foreign exchange student. Who the fuck knows what he's thinking? The Chinese are secretive people.
I'm from Toronto.
Anyway, here's what worries me. Season 2 is where One Piece starts getting really weird, in a good way. There are dinosaurs, giants, living wax prisons, a talking reindeer doctor with one of the most touching backstories in anime history. I dare you to not tear up a little at the end of episode 90. If season 2 doesn't land perfectly right from the start, both financially and globally, this adaptation could stall before it ever reaches Alabasta. So today, we need to ask the real question. Should we be worried about the future of One Piece live action? Let's talk about it. Season 2 is taking a risk by slowing down, and that's a good thing. Season 2 is deliberately slowing its pacing down compared to Season 1, but that's a smart move. Season 1 covered almost 100 chapters of the manga to complete the East Blue Saga. Season 2, however, is adapting Logtown through Drum Island, roughly chapters 96 to 154, but spreading that across a focused emotional arc structure. Netflix is splitting the larger Alabasta saga in two. Season 2 handles Logtown, Reverse Mountain, Whiskey Peak, Little Garden, and Drum Island. Season 3 is expected to focus entirely on Alabasta, which is a massive 63 chapter arc on its own. This divide and conquer strategy shows confidence in the show. Instead of rushing towards Crocodile and Alabasta just for the spectacle, they're prioritizing emotional groundwork, especially Chopper's backstory, the crew dynamic, and the escalating danger of the Grand Line. Drum Island isn't just a stop on the map. It's as pivotal as Arlong Park was. If they get that right, it'll elevate the entire series. So slowing down tells us that the creators are thinking in the long term, which is exactly what we need this show to do if it's going to survive beyond just 1 or 2 seasons. Oda's involvement is a massive safety net.
These Baroque word guys are different. They're crazy, powerful.
You're going to...
The continued involvement of Eiichiro Oda as the executive producer is one of the strongest arguments for the long-term success. Oda was deeply involved in Season 1, approving casting, tone decisions, and even delaying release until he was satisfied. For Season 2, he remains directly involved to ensure quality and loyalty to the manga's spirit. Adaptations fail when they lose their creative compass. The reason Season 1 worked wasn't just the budget or casting, it was tone. It captured the heart of One Piece without feeling embarrassed by its weirdness. And that weirdness is about to escalate. We're talking about dinosaurs on Little Garden, giant warriors like Dory and Brogy, living wax sculptures, and a king who eats himself into different forms. Without Oda's guidance, Netflix might be tempted to ground things, to sand off the edges and make it safe. But Oda's presence acts as quality control, and more importantly, as thematic protection. He knows what emotional beats matter, and what can be streamlined and what can't. As long as Oda is steering the ship, there's a strong reason to believe the adaptation won't lose its soul, even as it gets stranger. The tone shift is a gamble, and that's where concern is valid. Season 2 is entering the weird zone of One Piece, and that tonal gamble can either define its success or push mainstream audiences away. We're seeing Captain Smoker positioned as a relentless hunter, essentially replacing Garp's Season 1 narrative function. We're getting Mr. Three's wax powers and Chopper's backstory with Dr. Hirolook. We're even getting Laboon, a giant whale waiting 50 years for a promise. In the manga, this is where the world explodes into absurdity. I mean, we had a rubber man in Season 1, but this season is only going to take it up to 11. The concern is simple. Can live action balance goofy and grounded? In animation and manga, you can accept a king who eats buildings and morphs his body. In live action, that can easily tip into uncanny or ridiculous territory. The Wapol problem is real, because if they lean in too comedic, it breaks immersion, and if they go too horror heavy, it could ruin the tone of the entire show. But the trailer hints at a strategy. Keep the emotional stakes grounded, the crew under threat by Baroque works, while letting the world design become even bolder and more colourful. And I think that's the right call. Because once they enter the Grand Line, they're not in the East Blue anymore. Because as dangerous as Season 1 was, East Blue was the safest sea. So the world should feel larger and more dangerous. So yes, it's risky. But risk is necessary if this adaptation is going to evolve instead of stagnate and stick to the same vibes as Season 1. Now we have to address the real fear. Netflix has a history of cancelling shows, even popular and promising ones, even ones that get positive reviews. Again, RIP American Vandal.
Did you get a handjob from Sarah Pearson?
100%.
But also popular shows like Lockwood & Co., Glow, Mindhunter, and Teenage Bounty Hunters. That sucks because aside from Lockwood & Co., I've never seen the rest of these shows. Because what's the point of watching them without a conclusion? I know I'm not the only one to avoid watching unfinished stories. That pattern makes fans nervous, especially when we know One Piece requires long-term investment. You can't tell this story in 3 seasons, or even 5. It's a decades-long commitment. And no, I'm not exaggerating. But what could make this different? First, Season 1 was a global success. It pulled strong viewership numbers internationally. Second, this isn't an original Netflix IP. It's one of the best-selling manga series in history. That built-in global fanbase gives it some level of durability. Third, Netflix has already shown willingness to expand the world with bigger sets and larger creature effects. Studios don't invest more money into something they're planning to abandon quickly. Is cancellation still possible? Absolutely. But this isn't a niche sci-fi experiment like Altered Carbon that was cancelled too soon. This is a globally recognized franchise with built-in merchandising, anime and manga synergy, and cultural weight. That lowers the risk significantly. The foreshadowing suggests long-term planning. The inclusion of certain elements signals long-term storytelling intent. Laboon's introduction quietly sets up the eventual arrival of Brook, a storyline that won't pay off for years. The giant Story and Brogy use Haku sovereignty in the trailer foreshadows the immense power of Big Mom and Kaido, who won't show up for like 10 seasons. Wait, saying that sounds insane. Anyway, you don't plant seeds like that if you're thinking short term. Adaptations worried about cancellation often rush big reveals and front load the spectacle. But season 2 appears to be building layers instead. Smoker replacing Garp keeps the tension consistent, and Baroque Works is introduced methodically. Crocodile remains unseen, which saves the impact for season 3. The restraint suggests confidence and planning. Planning for payoff seasons down the line implies belief from both the creators and Netflix that this story has a runway. So, after all that, should we be worried? Yeah, it would be naive not to be. But here's the truth. Adapting One Piece was never supposed to work. For decades, people said it was unadaptable, too weird and colourful, too big and long. It would be insane financial investment to tell this story in full. And yet season 1 proved something important, as if you respect the heart of the story, people will show up. Even people who aren't fans of the source material.
Except I've got money!
So season 2 is standing at a crossroads. This is where the Grand Line begins and where the world opens up. This is where the Straw Hats stop being just another scrappy rookie crew and start going head to head against one of the world's 3 powers. And yeah, Netflix could still pull the plug at any moment. Streaming is unpredictable, and budgets are brutal. Algorithms and executives don't care about stories and quality, they care about the bottom line. But One Piece isn't just another show. Just look at the manga sales. It's one of the most successful stories ever told and has a global audience that spans generations. It has direct involvement of the creator. And most importantly, it has momentum. Laboon waiting 50 years, Chopper searching for a place to belong, Vivi carrying the weight of a kingdom, giants who speak of warriors and emperors, a world that only gets bigger. You don't plant seeds like that if you're planning to stop at the shoreline. So yes, we should be cautious. But don't let fear rob you of excitement. Because if season 2 delivers, and if audiences embrace the weirdness instead of rejecting it, then this can set a new bar for other adaptations to meet. Anyway, what do you think about the upcoming season? Let me know in the comments. Peace.